Distinguished Canadians! That is the theme for our episode as we get to know our two guests. One is a citizenship judge, and the other is a multi awarded public health official in Manitoba. Welcome to Barangay Canada!
Dito lang sa Barangay Canada.
Mabuhay to all our viewers and followers on Facebook, YouTube, and on the website barangaycanada.com. Once again, this is your Kabarangay Kris coming at you with a special English episode so that our Canadian friends can appreciate the discussion. On to our first guest. She has been practicing law for more than 13 years, including 8 years with the Federal Department of Justice in Aboriginal Legal Services. She earned her Bachelor of Law at the University of Calgary and a Bachelor of Arts at the University of Manitoba, with a double major in criminology and psychology. If you took your oath as a Canadian citizen sometime in the past 5 years, and you're based in Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba, chances are she probably presided over the ceremonies. She has the distinction of being the first Citizenship Judge of Mètis heritage. In 2019, she presided over the ceremony where my wife PJ and I became Canadian citizens. I got to read a short speech and I saw that it left an impression on her. And we kept in touch over the years, and I'm honored to say that we became good friends. She's none other than Suzanne Carrière, and let's get to know her more in this video. Have a look. Welcome to the program, Judge Suzanne.
Thanks so much for having me.
Well, I've been wanting to have you on the Barangay Canada podcast for so long. We've seen each other on and off here in Steinbach and even in the supermarket. I'm really thankful that you're here. So let's get on to it, if you're okay.
Yeah, of course.
So I'm sure a lot of Filipino Canadian viewers of our podcast are familiar with you, especially if you're the one who presided over their citizenship ceremony. Now they would like to get to know you more. So how long have you been a citizenship judge, and what do you like most about the job?
I became a citizenship judge in June of 2018, and I was appointed for a 3-year term. So that 3-year term came up June of 2021, and then I was reappointed again for another 3 years. So I've now got a little less than a year left in my second term. So I've been at this for just over 5 years. And then we'll see next year kind of what happens next. But yeah, so I've been doing it for a while, and it's absolutely the best job in the world. I absolutely love it. There are 3 parts to the job. So most people know us from citizenship ceremonies, of course, and that is a big part of the job. So we do swear in new Canadian citizens. But aside from that, we also are decision makers. We're called judges for a reason. So we do review some files. We make some decisions about whether applications for citizenship will be approved or refused. And so that's the first one is ceremonial. The second part is the decision making. And the third part is promotional work. So we do go out into the community, and I've done this as well with you, so you're aware of this, meet with community groups to talk about what it means to be a Canadian citizen, the rights and responsibilities that are attached to that, what the requirements are to become a Canadian citizen, that kind of thing. So either we do that in schools or with newcomer groups specifically, just kind of that outreach and promotional aspect. So those are the 3 parts of the job. Of course, the ceremonial stuff is the best part of the job. I mean, there's just no way around it. In my 5 years and a bit, I've presided. I just looked at, I keep a spreadsheet of all the different ceremonies that I've presided over the years. So I just looked at my spreadsheet, and I've presided over 1,750 ceremonies. And of course, there's multiple people becoming Canadian citizens at each ceremony. So I've now sworn in over 125,000 new Canadians. So, and every single time you'd think maybe that after doing it so many times that it kind of gets repetitive, but it's an honor every single time, because every single time you see, just because I've presided so many, it's the first and only time for those new Canadians that are becoming citizens on that particular day, and you can see every single time how exciting it is for them, how important it is. So it's an absolute honor and a privilege every single time. I never get tired of it. And there's been so many incredible moments over the years.
That's great to hear. So, as I said during the intro, you are part of the living rooms of the Filipino Canadian immigrants that I know, because they always have that picture with you, right? When they become citizens, so they're very familiar with your face, and I'm sure they remember that moment in time when their journey towards being a Canadian finally was attained. So, but how is it pretty common to have like back-to-back terms for a citizenship judge?
Back-to-back ceremonies?
Back-to-back terms. So
Oh,
you
sorry.
said you had 3-year terms, and then a 3-year term until 2021, and then now you're on your second term.
Yeah, I don't know how common it was before. So when I was appointed in 2018, it was mostly a fresh slate of new judges. Only, so to give you some context, there's very few of us across the country. At the moment, there's only 9 of us in Canada. When I was appointed back in 2018, there was 10 of us. And at that time, I think 8 of us were brand new and 2 were returning judges. And so many of us got reappointed in 2021. So it's certainly not unheard of. I'm not aware if there's any sort of limit on how many terms someone can serve as a citizenship judge. So we'll see what happens. I think there's some talk about a 3rd term, but certainly nothing finalized, and likely wouldn't be finalized for a while still. So we'll see.
But like you said, you sound you're very happy about doing it, right? So here's hoping that you're on your way to a 3rd term. And congratulations on everybody who you've sworn in as Canadians. That sounds like a population of a city, right?
Yeah, it's funny. I always the day that I hit 100,000 new Canadians, and like I said, I keep a spreadsheet. So I update my spreadsheet every single day after I preside ceremony. So I'm always kind of aware of the running total, if you will, of how many Canadians I've sworn in. And when that day was coming, I was kind of doing the math, and I kind of figured, I think it was in January of this year of 2023 that
just this year. Nice.
Yeah, that I hit that 100,000 milestone. But it was just a number in my mind. It wasn't until my middle son, who's now 13, said to me one day, he said, when I was talking about it, and he said, well, what does that look like? And so he picked up his phone right away and Googled, show me a crowd of 100,000. And then when I saw the pictures, and I posted this on social media, you may or may not have seen this, but when I saw pictures of what a crowd of 100,000 people looks like, then it really hit home. Like, the biggest stadiums in the world, if you pack them all, that's how many people I've sworn in as new Canadian citizen. It just absolutely boggles the mind. And of course, we're here in Manitoba. So, I'm not quite sure what the population of Steinbach is, but I think Brandon is about 50,000. So at the time, to think that you can gather everybody from Brandon all together and then double that. It boggles my mind when I try to think of it in those terms. But, it's funny you mentioned the picture taking and that kind of thing. Like I said, over 1,700 ceremonies, over 125,000 people that I've sworn in. I wouldn't even try to guess how many pictures of me are floating out there in the world. But, obviously—
Do you feel like a rock star now? Because if you put all those people together in an arena, then you would be performing.
Not like a rock star, but it's just very humbling. It's humbling to think, because again, it just comes back to how important that moment is for people, right? And obviously a lot of the ceremonies are, or maybe not obviously, maybe people don't know if they haven't become Canadian citizens in the last few years, but the vast majority of our ceremonies now are all online. And so the pictures that people have now of their ceremonies are very different from when you became a Canadian citizen and when others did in person. So really what happens now is, I'm on a computer screen and people take selfies with their computers, which obviously isn't quite the same as when we were in person. But the only reason I bring it up is because some of the great moments that I love in this role is just being out and about in Winnipeg or around Manitoba, and having people stop me and say, oh my goodness, you're the judge that swore me in. And then we can kind of have a bit more of a candid photo. I've taken pictures with people that are cashiers at Walmart, or just walking around town and being stopped on the sidewalk and taking pictures with people. So and it's especially gratifying if those people have had virtual ceremonies. So at least then, I can meet them in person and we can take a picture together in person, rather than them taking a selfie with a computer screen. But yeah, it's the greatest job in the world.
I know, and you're definitely a celebrity. Here in Steinbach, people might not know, but every summer you are here to help welcome the new Canadians in our city. Is that correct?
Yeah, part of Summers in the City festival. They reach out to me. Eastman Immigrant Services reaches out to me every year to see if I'll come and provide some remarks. And they do a little citizenship celebration where they invite everybody from the area, the Eastman area, who's become a Canadian citizen in that last year. And they invite them all up on stage and invite a few dignitaries like myself and the MP and MLA, the mayor, that kind of thing, to go to celebrate them during the festival. So it's nice. It's become a bit of a tradition now.
I was fortunate enough to be to be one of the people, or one of the immigrants who was able to have a ceremony in person with you. So unlike the past couple of years, like you pointed out, because there's been this little thing called the pandemic, so everybody had to stay home, do the
But
virtual
there's another
thing.
part. Not only did you have a ceremony that was in person, but back then we used to ask people, everybody that would get invited to a ceremony also got like a separate document where it was like people had the option to write in a little something about what the day means to them. And we would call people up to share if they wanted to. Obviously, it's up to them. If they wanted to share with the rest of the group what they had written and what that day meant to them. And of course, the day of your ceremony, you had written something in and submitted it to us, which was quite beautiful and powerful. So we asked you if you wanted to come share it in front of the group, which you did. So that made the ceremony all the more memorable for you and your family, but for us too. And I think it was because of that then you and I spoke a little bit more after the ceremony was done, and connected a bit. And that's why we've been able to maintain a relationship and a friendship since then, because it's already been over 4 years since you've become a Canadian citizen. And we've been in regular contact, kind of keeping up with what's going on in each other's worlds since then, which I really appreciate.
You have a great memory, and thank you so much for those kind words. You're correct, because 2019 was the year when we became citizens, myself and of course my better half, PG. So I'm really thankful for that, and more thankful that we became friends over the years, and we also see each other here in Steinbach. And talking about becoming Canadians, do you have any message for newcomers out there who are still undecided about getting a Canadian citizenship? Do you have any words of advice for them?
Yeah, I guess I would encourage anyone to do it. I mean, the moment I was born here, so I didn't go through this moment that you have and so many others have of publicly swearing an oath to Canada and pledging allegiance to Canada and pledging to do your best for Canada. I've never had to go through that moment, but I've certainly witnessed it often enough to know that the moment is really significant, and it just really inspires in people a sense of belonging and a sense of a shared experience with other new Canadians that's really more meaningful than just, the piece of paper or the citizenship certificate or the passport that kind of comes with it. So, and I think I've seen many families, it's a beautiful moment for families to experience together. It's a nice ceremonial way to really kind of put that chef's kiss on this journey, this long journey that people have been through to come to Canada in the first place. I mean, you have to be in Canada at least 3 years before you can apply to become a Canadian citizen, but you know better than anyone else that the process starts even long before then. So it's it's a big major journey for people to go through and for families to go through, and to have that ceremony at the end of it really kind of cements and solidifies how important that journey is, and how important it is to be a part of this family now, this Canadian family, and that we are as happy to have you as maybe some of you are to now be part of Canada, right? It really is a mutual celebration both ways. So I certainly would encourage people to do it. I know there's very valid reasons why some people don't want to. There are countries that don't allow dual citizenship, so it might be very understandably difficult to give up your birth citizenship to acquire Canadian citizenship. There's valid reasons why people might decide not to, but for those that are on the fence and that are thinking about it, and it's something that they want to do but they just haven't got around to it, I certainly encourage you to do it. These ceremonies might not always look the way they do now. I think these ceremonies are quite beautiful. They're meaningful, they're memorable, they're special, and I don't want anyone to miss out on that. Like I want everyone to experience the kind of joy and happiness that I see every single time, even when they're on, online on Zoom. Every single time you see people tearing up, or you see how important it is to them. You see families that are going through it together, and they're like embracing each other once that moment, once they've sworn the oath and they've officially become Canadian citizens. You see people dancing and cheering and all these kinds of things. And whether it's in person or virtual, you see people dressed to the nines, like just really either in their, either suits and dresses and that kind of thing, or more in their traditional clothing from their home countries. It's a beautiful, beautiful celebration. And to have that moment shared with other people, especially if it's in person, is really kind of a beautiful thing. And then everyone swears the oath together. And then at the end of the ceremony, everybody sings "O Canada" together. Like, these moments are just, they're special. And I think for some people, it really solidifies their sense of belonging here. And there's a lot of value in that, especially, in the world these days. There's a lot of things happening. There's a lot of divisiveness, and having a moment like that really brings people together and celebrates people's belonging to a country is just super special. So I certainly would encourage people to go ahead with it if it's something that they're thinking of doing.
So you said that so beautifully, Suzanne. I want to be a citizen all over again. No, but it's true. Like, it's I like the way you pointed out, because it's a culmination not just of many years of waiting and working on documents, but it also represents a lot of effort on the part of the immigrants, all the sacrifices that they made along the way, and it's different for each person. So like you said, it's a magical moment, and it's different for each person. So I totally agree with your observation right there. But talking about ceremonies, you've been part of like one major ceremony that happened, and that was Canada Day this year, right? Is that a career highlight for you? Tell us about it.
It certainly was. So it was a Canada Day ceremony taking place in Ottawa this year, and it was televised. It was part of the CBC noon hour show. So it was a 2-hour television special. The Prime Minister was there, the Governor General was there. There was a lot of different special guests. Jeremy Hansen, the astronaut, was there. A lot of different musical acts. It was like nothing
You were there.
ever done before. I was there, yes. Not the main draw, but they let me sneak onto the stage and share the day with the others. But yeah, like nothing I'd ever done before. Obviously, I mentioned earlier just how many ceremonies I've done, but never anything on live television. So, no extra takes or second takes if you mess up in any way. This was live television. with the on a huge stage, way bigger than anything I'd ever done before, and you know, with everything that comes with a major TV production, which I've never been part of before, right? All the crew and everything that's happening in the background, and the sound people and the stage people and makeup people and hair people, and rehearsals ahead of time and that kind of thing. And again, all of it was live, so it was a bit nerve-wracking. It was outside, so we weren't really sure what we were going to get in terms of weather. Thankfully, everything kind of worked out okay. I say it worked out okay. It was great for the 2-hour show, but there were tornado warnings after that. Like immediately after the show was done, we had to shelter because of a tornado watch in a nearby building. I mean, it was a bit of a crazy day. But like I said, it was a bit nerve-wracking. But not only was it live television, but you know, I'm also doing, you know, my bits. I had 4 different times when I was on the show, up on stage, and you know, but doing everything with the Prime Minister and his family right in front of me, and the Governor General and her husband as well. And so yeah, it was probably the most terrifying thing I've ever done. At least career-wise, but also the most satisfying. We had a ton of fun, and it was really quite the memorable experience. We got to meet the Prime Minister and his wife, well, very briefly backstage after the show was done. And yeah, it was fantastic. I ended up bringing my daughter with me so she could kind of, she's 14 years old, so she could kind of experience it all with me. She had spent 3 weeks in Ottawa last summer. So for her, it was nice to go back. She had done a program through school. It's a 3-week program where she spent time out there living on the campus of University of Ottawa with 60 other teenagers from across the country. So we got to go back, and she got to show me kind of where she was staying, where she had stayed, and everything she had experienced while she was there. And then she got to experience what I was going through, part of this big, you know, nationally broadcast TV production. So we had really quite the special time together out there.
It turned out to be a bonding thing between the 2 of you and your daughter.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, it was really nice. She was quite, you know, she's a teenager, so I'm very, very uncool in her eyes. But for her to see kind of the scale, the large scale of this production, and that I was, you know, I was a big part of it, and that having a trailer backstage and
you had a trailer?
Cool.
Yeah,
yeah. So
you're a cool mom now, then.
Yeah, I was for a very short period of time. Trust me.
That was your 15 minutes, Suzanne.
I'm right back to being the uncool mom now, but it was nice to enjoy that for a few days.
You are officially a national celebrity from that day on.
I'm not sure about that.
But hold on. I noticed, Suzanne, that behind you, there's that orange shirt. Of course, the famous Every Child Matters shirt. And knowing how proud you are of your Métis heritage, how do you feel about history being made here in Manitoba, having its first ever First Nations premier?
Yeah, I think that's so exciting. I certainly watched that election very closely and was glued to my TV watching the results coming in. But yeah, it's super important. I think, I mean, we all know representation matters, and it's really important for people to see themselves, see people that look like them in leadership positions. And so this is so important for the Indigenous community, for Indigenous youth to be able to see someone who looks like them in a leadership position. I mean, the premier of Manitoba, it's so exciting, and just really, a huge congratulations to him and his team. And he is a very important role model for people, and it's so incredibly important. So I'm just so excited about it. I think it's amazing, and it's fantastic. And you do need people with different perspectives in leadership positions, in decision-making positions, in policy-setting positions. And so to have that Indigenous perspective, a different perspective, just a different lens to view things is so crucial. So I'm ecstatic. I think it's fantastic, and he's the first First Nations premier of a province. We know there's been First Nations premiers in the territories, but hopefully and surely not the last.
And thanks so much for sharing how you feel about that. And once again, thank you for giving us this time to be on the program. I hope I can invite you again so we can have a much longer chat. But for now, thank you, Suzanne, for being here.
Thank you, Chris. Thanks for having me. I know we've talked about this for a long time, so I'm glad we finally made it happen. And yeah, definitely not the last time we'll be chatting.
Yeah, hope to see you soon, Suzanne. Mabuhay!
Dito lang sa Barangay Canada.